What is time? It's a question that seems simple, so simple that we rarely stop to ask it. We glance at the glowing numbers on a clock, sigh at how fast the weekend vanished, or groan as 5 minutes in a waiting room stretch into an eternity. Time is the quiet pulse that shapes our days, the invisible thread stitching together our lives. Yet, the moment we try to grasp it, it slips through our fingers like water, refusing to be held. We talk about time as though we know it well. We spend it, save it, waste it, kill it. We chase it and complain there's never enough. But underneath all these familiar phrases lies a profound mystery. What is this thing that governs every heartbeat, every sunrise, every memory, and yet cannot be seen or touched? Tonight, let's step gently into that mystery. This isn't a lecture. It's a slow walk through the fabric of existence. A chance to pause and listen to the ticking beneath the noise of everyday life. Together, we'll wander from the rhythms of our own minds to the deep clocks written in the stars, from the musings of philosophers to the equations of physicists. And maybe somewhere between seconds and centuries, we'll glimpse the true nature of time, or at least learn why it remains one of the most elusive ideas we've ever tried to understand. So take a deep breath. Notice the moment you're in right now, the breath entering your lungs, the light around you, the quiet hum of life continuing. This too is time. And as we begin, let's start with the version we know best, not the time measured by atomic clocks or the curvature of space-time, but the time that lives inside us, the strange, elastic, deeply personal time of the human mind. Have you ever noticed how time refuses to behave? 10 minutes waiting in line at the post office can feel like an hour, but 10 minutes laughing with someone you love passes in the blink of an eye. A summer as a child seemed endless. Summers as an adult arrive and vanish before we've even put the sunscreen away. A single terrifying second can feel like slow motion. A year of ordinary days disappears when we look back. Physics insists that seconds always tick by at the same pace. But our experience says otherwise. This gap between clock time and felt time is where one of the most fascinating stories begins. Scientists call it subjective time, and it lives in the folds of our attention, emotion, memory, and biology. It is why the same stretch of minutes can feel unbearably long or astonishingly short. It is why we can't trust our own sense of duration and why the past seems to shrink as the future hurtles toward us. And it is why time, though constant in the equations, is endlessly changeable in the human heart. Imagine you're sitting in a doctor's waiting room. The clock ticks loudly, the walls are beige, and the magazines look like they've been there since the dawn of civilization. 5 minutes drags on like 30. Now picture yourself in a lively conversation with a friend. You glance at your phone and realize hours have passed unnoticed. The difference isn't the clock, it's your attention. When the world is dull and empty, your mind has nothing to hold on to. It turns inward, focusing on the slow drip of seconds. Each tick is counted, cataloged, and magnified. But when you're engaged, absorbing conversation, painting, solving a problem, or watching a film, your attention shifts outward. The ND stops watching the clock. Time slips quietly into the background. Psychologists call this state flow, a term coined by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. It's that feeling of being so immersed in something that time seems to dissolve. In flow, we're fully present. And because the brain is no longer measuring moments, they stop appearing as discrete units. Time stops crawling and starts flying. Now think of a week you spent traveling somewhere new. Each day was full of surprises, unfamiliar streets, new foods, strange words, and fresh sights. During the trip, time seemed to pass quickly. But looking back, the week feels long and rich, full of detail and story. Contrast that with a typical work week at home. Same commute, same desk, same routine. During the week, the days felt slow. But looking back, they blur together into nothing. The explanation lies in how memory encodes time. Novelty, newness, forces the brain to work harder. It records more detail and stores more footage. Later, when we look back, the density of memory tricks us into believing more time must have passed. Routine, on the other hand, compresses memory. Fewer landmarks, fewer highlights, fewer points of reference. The reel is shorter. The week seems shorter. This is why childhood summers stretch forever. the world is new and vivid, and every hour leaves a mark. And it's why adulthood feels like time speeds up. Our days become highways instead of winding trails, smooth and fast, but with fewer memorable stops. Fear and anxiety can make time crawl. In moments of danger, a near accident, a sudden fall, people often describe the world slowing down, every detail sharpening, every second elongated. It's not that time itself slows. Instead, the brain floods with attention, capturing more snapshots per second. Later, when a memory plays back, it feels as though more time must have passed. Joy, excitement, and love do the opposite. They compress time. They sweep us into the present so completely that the minutes and hours dissolve. A day spent with someone dear feels shorter than it is. A year spent chasing a passion feels like a season. Emotion changes how densely we pack our experiences into memory. And in doing so, it changes the texture of time itself. Time flies when you're having fun, we say. But the opposite is equally true. Time crawls when we're bored. Neuroscientists have found that boredom makes the brain's internal pacemaker, yes, that's a real term, more active. More pulses are generated, and with more pulses comes the sensation that more time is passing. It's as though an over-enthusiastic drummer is tapping out every empty moment, reminding us of how slowly the minutes move. That's why those last 10 minutes of a dull meeting or a tedious Zoom call feel longer than an entire weekend away. The seconds themselves haven't changed. Only our perception has. Our minds play another trick on us. They measure time differently in the moment, and in hindsight, prospective time is how long something feels while it's happening. Retrospective time is how long it seems afterward. And these two can disagree wildly. A week-long hike might feel fast while you're on it, days flowing together in motion and excitement. But later, it feels long and full because your memory has so much to hold. A monotonous work week might feel slow as you live it but seems to vanish when you look back because it left little behind. Our perception of time, then, is not one thing but two, one immediate, one reflective, and they rarely tell the same story. For very young children, time is barely real. Ask a 5-year-old how long 5 minutes is, and you might hear forever or until I finish this cookie. Their brains haven't yet built the scaffolding to measure time precisely. Each moment is vast and fluid, unmoored from clocks. Only as we grow and are taught to watch the clock, follow schedules, and obey phrases like just 5 more minutes do we begin to internalize measured time. And with that understanding comes a shift. Time becomes segmented, regimented, smaller. What once felt like an endless afternoon now fits neatly into a calendar square. It's not just knowledge that changes us. It's the narrowing of novelty, the compression of memory, and the relentless tick of responsibility. Childhood is a wide river. Adulthood is a canal. There's one more force that warps subjective time. Anticipation. Look forward to something. A holiday, a reunion, the weekend, and time seems to drag its feet. Dread something, a test, a surgery, an uncomfortable conversation, and the effect is the same. We imagine the future in detail, rehearsing it, worrying over it. In doing so, we stretch time itself. The same neural machinery that remembers the past also imagines the future. And in activating it, anticipation slows the present. Is it Friday yet? We ask on Wednesday, trapped in the slow drip of expectation. Perhaps the most profound distortions of time occur when we stop trying to measure it at all. In meditation, deep prayer, or moments of total absorption, people often report a strange sensation. Time seems to disappear. Minutes, hours, they lose their meaning. There is only now. This isn't a trance or a trick. It's the absence of measurement. When the mind ceases to count, time ceases to divide. What remains is pure experience, unchopped by seconds or minutes. For many, this state, sometimes called timelessness, is among the most meaningful experiences they ever have. In certain altered states, deep meditation, intense emotion, even under the influence of specific substances, people describe time looping, stretching, collapsing, or disappearing entirely. Sometimes they feel as though they've stepped outside the river and are watching it from the shore. Neuroscientists believe this is linked to changes in the default mode network, a set of brain regions involved in self-referential thought and time perception. When this network quiets, our usual sense of self and time can dissolve. The story we tell ourselves about the past and future fades. All that remains is the present moment, and yet these timeless moments are not meaningless. They often feel more real than ordinary time, as if by stepping outside the current, we see the river for what it truly is. Subjective time is not reliable. It bends, warps, and contradicts itself. It speeds up and slows down, shrinks and stretches. It loops and sometimes disappears altogether. But this unreliability is not a flaw. It's what makes it human, that we are creatures of memory, emotion, and imagination. We live not just in seconds and minutes, but in stories and meanings. The time we feel is woven from attention, experience, and anticipation, not from gears or atomic vibrations. And perhaps that is why it feels so deeply personal. It's not the universe's time. It's ours. And yet, subjective time is only one face of the mystery. Beneath the elastic hours of the mind lies another rhythm, one that pulses not in thoughts or feelings, but in cells and cycles. It is the time that life itself keeps, whether we are aware of it or not. And to understand time fully, we must listen to the clocks written into our biology, the ancient metronomes that beat inside every living thing. Time is not only something we feel in our thoughts, it also lives quietly within our bodies. Long before we built clocks, long before we named hours or measured seconds, life was already keeping time. Flowers opened and closed with the sun. Birds migrated with the seasons. Human bodies woke and slept, warmed and cooled, ate and healed according to rhythms older than memory. This is biological time, the deep, ancient metronome that beats inside every living thing. It is not counted in seconds, but in cycles. It is not measured on a clock face, but in pulses, hormones, and the turning of the earth itself. And just as our minds bend time in curious ways, our bodies keep it with astonishing precision. Oh, circadian, about a day hidden in the heart of your brain, just above where your optic nerves cross, lies a tiny cluster of about 20,000 neurons in the brain's internal clock, the SCN. It is small enough to balance on the tip of a needle, yet it is the conductor of an orchestra that plays through every cell of your body. This orchestra is your circadian rhythm, from the Latin circa diem, about a day. Nearly every living thing on Earth, humans, plants, animals, fungi, even some bacteria, follows these daily rhythms. They regulate when we feel sleepy and when we wake, how our body temperature rises and falls, how we digest food, how our cells divide, and how our immune systems defend us. The beat is roughly 24 hours long, but not exactly. Most humans run slightly long, about 24.2 hours. Left alone in a cave without clocks or sunlight, we would slowly drift out of sync with the planet beneath our feet. Light is what keeps us anchored. Every morning, when sunlight hits your eyes, it sends a signal directly to the SCN. The message is simple but profound. Day has begun. In response, the SCN resets your internal clocks. It adjusts hormone levels, shifts your body temperature, and coordinates countless biological processes to align with the world outside. One of the SCN's most elegant tricks is its control of melatonin, often called the sleep hormone. As daylight fades, melatonin levels rise, nudging you toward rest. As dawn approaches, they fall, lifting you toward wakefulness. It's your body's way of whispering, now is the time to sleep, now is the time to rise. But the system is delicate. Disrupt it, fly across time zones, stay awake under bright screens until 2 a.m., or work night shifts under fluorescent light, and the clock begins to stumble. That's when we feel jet lag. Our inner time and outer time fall out of step. Your brain may adjust quickly to the new light cycle, but your liver, your gut, and even your immune cells lag behind, still living in yesterday. It's not just your mind that struggles with time shifts. It's your entire biology trying to catch up with the sun. In the ancient world, our lives moved in rhythm with daylight. We rose with the sun, rested with the dark, and let the world's turning set the tempo of our days. Today, we've bent that rhythm to our will. We work late, flood our nights with electric light, and stare into glowing screens that pour blue light into our eyes. The same kind of light the morning sun brings. Our bodies are easily fooled. That light tells the SCN it's still daytime. Melatonin production slows. Sleepiness fades. Midnight arrives, but the inner clock still thinks it's noon. And so we stay awake, tired but wired, dragging our rhythms ever further from the natural beat. It's not that we've become night owls. It's that we've invited the sun indoors, and it refuses to set. Oh. Any clocks within the SCN is the master clock, but it is not the only one. That every organ in your body, your liver, heart, skin, even your fat cells, has its own internal rhythm. These peripheral clocks follow the lead of the SCN, but also listen to local signals like food, temperature, and hormones. It is a symphony of timing, all coordinated, but each section with its own part to play. Disrupt that harmony, and strange things happen. Eat meals at odd hours, and your liver's clock may fall out of sync with your brain's. Work night shifts long enough, and your cardiovascular system may play a different rhythm than your immune system. The result isn't just fatigue. It can ripple through metabolism, mood, immunity, and even disease risk. Time, it turns out, isn't just something we watch. It's something we are. Not everyone's biological time runs the same. Some people are larks, up with the sunrise, full of energy before breakfast and fading gently by evening. Others are owls, slow to start, but sharp and creative as night falls. These patterns, called chronotypes, are deeply rooted in our genes, so if mornings feel like swimming through syrup while nights hum with clarity, it's not laziness, it's biology. Your body's clock is simply tuned to a different beat, and it's not just humans. Across the animal kingdom, countless creatures follow their own internal schedules. Nocturnal animals rise when we sleep. Plants unfurl their leaves with the dawn and close them as the sun sets. Even if they're kept in darkness, they don't see the light. They remember it. Their time lives within them. Your body temperature isn't constant. It dips in the early morning hours, then rises throughout the day, peaking in the late afternoon. This rise doesn't just keep you warm. It sharpens your reflexes, boosts your alertness, and fine-tunes your metabolism. It's why athletes often perform better later in the day, and why morning meetings can feel like trying to solve a puzzle underwater. It's also why a warm shower before bed can help you sleep, by triggering a cooling response afterward that mimics the body's natural nightfall rhythm. Time is not just the ticking of a clock. It is the ebb and flow of heat and hormones, a dance as old as life itself. Even medicine bows to biological time. The effectiveness of a drug can change dramatically depending on when you take it. This field, known as chronopharmacology, studies how timing influences the body's response to treatment. A dose of chemotherapy, a blood pressure pill, even a simple painkiller, all may work better at 1 hour than another, depending on the rhythms of your cells. It's a reminder that time is not just something outside us. It is woven into our biology, shaping how we heal, how we grow, and how we live. Humans are not the only creatures ruled by the clock. Across the tree of life, time shapes behavior and survival in ways both subtle and spectacular. Plants tilt toward the sun and close their flowers at night, even in sealed rooms with no light. Their circadian rhythms persist in darkness, driven not by the sun they see, but by the memory of its rising and setting. Sunflowers turn not because they're watching the light, but because their inner clocks tell them when to move. Birds migrate at the same times each year, navigating across continents in sync with seasonal shifts. Bees know the time of day certain flowers will bloom and adjust their foraging accordingly. Rodents time their hibernation cycles to the slow turning of the year. Even fungi, those quiet recyclers of the forest floor, release their spores in time with invisible rhythms that have pulsed through life for billions of years. Time is not just a human invention. It is the heartbeat of life itself. When we talk about time, we often mean the kind we measure, seconds, minutes, hours, and days. But life knows another time, a deeper time, measured in cycles and seasons, light and dark, hunger and rest. This biological time is not displayed on a screen or written on a calendar. It is sung in hormones and heartbeats, whispered in the turning of leaves and the sleepiness that arrives with dusk. It is time as rhythm, not as a ruler but as a pulse. And though we may try to bend this rhythm to our schedules and screens, deep down, we still follow the same ancient beat. We still wake with the light and tire with the dark. Our cells still listen for the rising sun. Our lives still trace the turning of the earth. Time does not just pass around us. It pulses within us. Yet for all the elegance of our inner clocks, there is another story, a story that unfolds not in cells or sunlight but in sundials and gears, water clocks and atomic pulses. It is the story of how we, as humans, tried to tame time itself. To understand how our relationship with time has evolved, we must travel back, far back, to when the first humans watched the shadows shift and wondered how to capture something that never stood still. Long before the first clock ticked, before gears and pendulums and glowing digital numbers, our ancestors looked to the heavens to mark the passing of time. They watched the sun rise and set, the moon wax and wane, and the stars wheel across the night. They learned to read the turning of the seasons in the tilt of shadows and the songs of birds. For them, time was not something you measured. It was something you lived. It began with the sky. The sky was the first clock humanity ever knew. The rising and setting of the sun divided day from night. The waxing moon marked months. The slow procession of constellations traced the year. These were nature's earliest calendars, immense, reliable, and free. With nothing but eyes and memory, early humans learned to plant crops by the stars, to hunt by the season, and to gather before winter's chill. The heavens became our first teacher, showing us that time was not chaos but a rhythm. But we are a species that seeks to shape the world, and soon we tried to shape time itself. Around 1500 BCE, the ancient Egyptians raised tall stone obelisks into the desert sky. These towering spires were not just monuments, they were among the earliest timekeepers. As the sun moved across the heavens, the obelisk's shadow crept slowly around its base, tracing the passage of the day. By marking where the shadow fell, the Egyptians divided daylight into segments. It was a crude division. An hour in summer was longer than an hour in winter, but it was enough to schedule prayers, rituals, and daily life. From these towering monuments came a sundial, a simple device that transformed the sun's movement into measurable time. A stick or stone cast a shadow on a flat surface marked with lines, and as the shadow shifted, the day unfolded in orderly steps. The sundial could not work at night or on cloudy days, but it was a profound leap. For the first time, humans had turned the endless flow of sunlight into something they could measure. Time was no longer just observed. It was tracked. But what of the hours when the sun slept? Humans needed a clock that worked when the sky did not. And so they turned to the most ancient of elements, water. The Egyptians built devices known as clepsydry, water thieves. A vessel filled with water would slowly drip into another through a narrow hole. By marking how much water had flowed, they could measure the passing of time even under the stars. The Greeks refined the idea, using more complex designs with gears and indicators. The Chinese built magnificent water clocks that chimed bells and moved mechanical figures as the hours passed. Water clocks were not perfect. Their flow changed with temperature and pressure, but they carry humanity into a new era. For the first time, time could be measured independently of the heavens. It was a subtle but revolutionary shift. Time was no longer tied entirely to nature. It was becoming a thing we could create. While sundials and water clocks measured hours, other civilizations turned their gaze outward to measure years. In Mesoamerica, the Maya built astonishingly accurate calendar systems, tracking the cycles of the sun and moon with mathematical precision. Their long count calendars spanned thousands of years, mapping cosmic time across ages. Without metal tools or beasts of burden, they charted the heavens so accurately that modern astronomers still marvel at their work. In Mesopotamia, Babylonian astronomers recorded the movements of planets and stars, building mathematical models that allowed them to predict eclipses and solstices. Across the world, the sky remained humanity's grandest timekeeper, but we were learning to read it not as observers, but as architects. Time was becoming a canvas on which humans could draw. For centuries, time remained local and personal. It rose with the sun and ended with the stars. Villages marked the day by the crowing of roosters, the ringing of church bells, or the shadows on the walls. But as societies grew more complex, time needed to be shared. It needed to be synchronized, and in the Middle Ages, great monasteries became the custodians of time. Their days revolved around prayer, and prayer required order. Bells rang through stone corridors to mark the hours, not with precision, but with purpose. These early time signals were the heartbeat of the community, guiding work, meals, worship, and rest. It was here, in the echoing towers of monasteries, that mechanical clocks were born. The earliest mechanical clocks appeared in Europe around the 13th century. They were massive, heavy contraptions of iron and wood, too large for homes, too unwieldy for pockets. Installed in church towers, they did not have faces or hands. They simply rang bells at regular intervals, announcing the passing hours to all within earshot. Time had stepped out of the sky and into the streets. A great leap came with the invention of the verge escapement in the 14th century, a clever mechanism that regulated the release of energy, allowing clocks to tick with more regularity. For the first time, smaller and more reliable timepieces became possible. Soon, clockmakers added dials and hands, and humanity could not only hear time, they could see it. Every tick was a triumph of human ingenuity. Every tick, a claim that we could measure what once flowed unseen. By the 17th century, timekeeping leapt forward once more. The Dutch scientist Christian Huygens built the first successful pendulum clock, a design so precise it lost less than a minute a day. Compared to earlier clocks, which could drift by hours, this was a staggering achievement. Time had become more than a signal. It was a measurement you could trust. This newfound precision wasn't just a scientific curiosity. It was essential to exploration. Navigators at sea needed accurate time to calculate longitude, and without it, voyages were perilous. An English carpenter named John Harrison spent decades solving the problem, building marine chronometers that could keep time aboard a rolling ship. His final design, the H4, transformed navigation forever, allowing sailors to pinpoint their position and chart the world with newfound confidence. Time was no longer a local affair. It was becoming global. The 20th century brought a revolution in timekeeping. In the 1920s, scientists discovered that quartz crystals, when subjected to an electric current, vibrated at an extraordinarily stable frequency. These vibrations could keep time far more accurately than any pendulum or spring. Quartz clocks were smaller, cheaper, and astonishingly precise. They became the heartbeat of modern life, powering watches, radios, and eventually computers. Trains ran on time. Factories synchronized shifts. People carried time on their wrists. What had once been cosmic was now personal. What had once been sacred was now everywhere. But humanity's ambition did not stop there. If quartz was a heartbeat, atoms were a drum that never missed a beat. In the 1950s, scientists built the first atomic clocks, using the natural vibrations of atoms, usually cesium or rubidium, to measure time with astonishing accuracy. A cesium atom, for example, vibrates nearly 193 million times every second. That number isn't trivia. It's the official definition of a second in the International System of Units. An atomic clock could run for 100 million years and be off by less than a second. This precision became the backbone of the modern world. Atomic clocks synchronize GPS satellites, power telecommunications networks, and keep the internet's heartbeat steady. Without them, your phone's app would be lost, your bank transactions chaotic, and your Zoom meetings perpetually late. From shadows on stone to oscillating atoms, humanity's quest to capture time has spanned millennia. We had turned something elusive and invisible into something measurable, dependable, and even predictable. And yet, even as our clocks grew more perfect, time itself remained as strange as ever. Because no matter how finely we divide it, we each live time differently. And no matter how precisely we measure it, time does not always behave the way we expect. It was a man named Isaac Newton, with his ink-stained notes and his falling apples, who first tried to tame this wildness. He imagined time as something absolute, a river flowing steadily forward, the same for everyone, everywhere. And for centuries, That view held the world together until another one, wild-haired and soft-spoken, arrived to turn it upside down. For most of human history, time was a local companion. It rose with the sun and sank with the stars. It rang from church towers and flowed from water clocks. It governed fields and prayers, markets and meals. But it was not yet a law, not yet something science could describe with precision and certainty. Then came a man who changed everything. In the 17th century, Isaac Newton gazed upon the cosmos with an audacious question. Could the universe be explained, every motion, every fall, every orbit, by a set of universal laws? And to answer that question, he would need to define time itself. To Newton, the universe was like a grand stage. Space was the vast platform on which celestial bodies danced, and time was the steady rhythm to which they moved. Time, he argued, flowed evenly and unchanging, everywhere and for everyone. It ticked along whether planets spun or people slept, whether anything happened or nothing at all. He called it absolute time. In his own words, absolute, true, and mathematical time of itself and from its own nature flows equably without relation to anything external. In other words, time was a river, not a trickle or a tide, but a steady, unstoppable current, indifferent to everything around it. Drop an apple today or tomorrow, and Newton's equations would tell you where it would be at every moment. Fire a cannonball in Paris or in Peru, and time's constant flow would allow you to predict its arc. In Newton's universe, time was the silent metronome behind the symphony of motion. This view worked beautifully. It explained falling apples and orbiting moons, swinging pendulums and spinning planets. It brought order to the cosmos and precision to the clockmaker's craft. Steam engines, navigation charts, and planetary tables all ticked in harmony with Newton's time. For over 2 centuries, this river of time carried science forward. Not everyone accepted Newton's vision. His contemporary, the philosopher Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, disagreed. Time, Leibniz argued, was not a thing in itself. It was not a river flowing on its own. Time was merely a way to describe the order of events, a relationship between things that happen. Without events, he said, there is no time. A clock in an empty universe, ticking in silence, would be meaningless. For Newton, the clock would still measure time. For Leibniz, it would be nothing more than a useless ornament. Their debate, absolute versus relational time, echoed through the halls of science and philosophy. But Newton's view prevailed. It worked, and in science, what works endures, and endure it did until cracks began to form. By the 19th century, physics had grown confident. Newton's laws ruled the skies and the seas. Trains ran on schedules, telescopes mapped the stars, and engineers built machines with breathtaking precision. Time was treated as universal, unchanging, and unquestioned. Then scientists studying light stumbled upon something strange. Experiments showed that the speed of light was always the same, no matter how fast the observer was moving. A beam of light sped away at the same pace whether you chased it or fled from it. This was impossible in Newton's universe, where speeds added and subtracted like simple sums. If you ran toward a thrown ball, it reached you faster. But light did not care. The steady river of absolute time began to ripple, and into those ripples stepped a quiet young man working in a Swiss patent office, a man who would rewrite our understanding of reality itself. In 1905, Albert Einstein, at just 26 years old, published a paper that would change the world. It was called Special Relativity, and its premise was deceptively simple. The laws of physics, including the speed of light, are the same for all observers, no matter how fast they're moving. But this simple statement shattered centuries of certainty. If the speed of light was constant for everyone, then something else had to give. And that something was timed. In Newton's universe, 2 events that happened simultaneously for one observer must be simultaneous for all. But Einstein showed that simultaneity is not absolute. 2 events might happen at the same time for you, but at different times for someone moving relative to you. Time, it turned out, depends on your point of view. From this radical idea came one of the strangest and most beautiful consequences in all of physics: time dilation. The faster you move, the slower time passes for you relative to someone standing still. Imagine you climb aboard a spaceship and accelerate close to the speed of light. To you, Everything feels normal. Your watch ticks, your heart beats, and your thoughts flow. But when you return home, you find that years have passed on Earth while you've aged only a fraction of that. Time for you flowed more slowly. This is not science fiction. It is science fact. In the 1970s, scientists flew atomic clocks on airplanes and compared them to identical clocks left on the ground. The flying clocks ticked slightly slower, just as Einstein predicted. Astronauts aboard the International Space Station experienced the same effect. They age a few microseconds less than those of us on Earth. It's a small difference, but a profound truth. Time is not the same for everyone. One of the most famous thought experiments of relativity is the twin paradox. Imagine identical twins. One boards a spaceship and races around a galaxy at near light speed. The other stays home. When the traveling twin returns, they are younger than their sibling. Not because they ate better or slept more, but because their time ran more slowly. That IT feels like a paradox, but it isn't. It's a feature of the universe. Time itself bends to motion. Einstein didn't stop there. In 1915, he unveiled an even grander theory, general relativity, a new way to understand gravity itself. Newton had described gravity as a force, an invisible pull between masses. Einstein saw something deeper. He described gravity as the curvature of space-time on masses, four-dimensional fabric woven from three dimensions of space and one of time. Massive objects like stars and planets bend this fabric around them, and objects follow the curves time, painted onto this cosmic fabric, stretches and warps too. The stronger the gravity, the slower time runs. Stand on the surface of a neutron star, if you could survive, and time would crawl compared to a distant observer. Even here on Earth, the difference is measurable. In a famous experiment, scientists placed two atomic clocks at different altitudes, one at the base of a mountain and one at the top. The lower clock, deeper in Earth's gravity, ticked slightly slower. Even the height of your head above your feet changes how quickly time flows. This isn't just an abstract curiosity. Relativity shapes our daily lives. GPS satellites orbit high above Earth, where gravity is weaker and time runs faster. But they also move quickly, and that option slows their clocks. Both effects, gravitational time dilation and velocity time dilation, must be precisely accounted for. Without those adjustments, your phone's GPS would drift by several kilometers in just a few minutes. Every app, every navigation system, and every location pin owes its accuracy to Einstein's warping of time. Einstein replaced Newton's steady river with something far stranger and more beautiful, a fabric that stretches and bends. Time is no longer absolute. It is woven together with space, shaped by speed and gravity. It does not flow the same for everyone, everywhere. It is personal and relational, unique to where you are and how you live. Your heartbeat, your thoughts, your aging, all tick to a rhythm shaped by the cosmos around you. And yet, for all its strangeness, relativity is not chaos. It is a deeper order. Newton's laws still work beautifully at everyday speeds and scales. But at the edges, near light speed, near black holes, across vast distances, Einstein's universe reveals itself. A universe where time is not a background but a participant. Not a stage, but a dancer in the cosmic waltz. Einstein's ideas didn't just change how we measure time. They changed how we see reality. Time is no longer the same everywhere. It is not a universal heartbeat, but a rhythm that shifts and swells with emotion and A&S. It can stretch and slow, bend and twist. It is woven into the shape of space itself, and yet, for all its elegance, relativity leaves us with new questions. If time can bend, can it reverse? If it flows differently for different observers, why does it always seem to flow forward? Why does the past feel fixed and the future unwritten? And if time is woven with space, what sets its direction at all? To answer those questions, us must follow time into its next chapter, a chapter written not in gears or gravity, but in the hidden order of the universe itself. Us must follow it into the arrow of time. Imagine, for a moment, a world running backward, Tea grows hotter as you sip it. Shattered glass leaps from the floor and reassembles in your hand. Raindrops rise into the clouds, and people grow younger with each passing day. It's a strange image, almost comical moment, and yet, if you were to write down the fundamental laws of physics, nothing in them would forbid it. Newton's laws, actual and Maxwell's equations, even the equations of quantum mechanics, Maxwell's mechanics, all of them work just as well backward as forward. A film of two particles colliding looks the same whether played in reverse or not. The mechanics, allopath doesn't care which way time flows. And yet the world does not. We remember the past, not the future. Eggs break but never unbreak. Paper burns but never leaps back into a pristine sheet. Time, in our lived experience, is a one-way street. It carries us from yesterday into tomorrow with relentless certainty. This one-way nature of time path, this sense of directio phison, is called the arrow of time. And understanding why it exists is one of the ISA's most profound questions in all of science. The answer begins with a law of physics that seems, at first, to have nothing to do with time. It is the second law of thermodynamics, and it states that in a closed system most, the universe itself, like it, entropy always increases. Entropy is a entropy measure of disorder, randomness, or the number of ways a system can be arranged. High entropy a measure ambience chaos. Low entropy means order. And the second law tells us that, left alone, systems tend sovi from order to disorder. An egg can easily become a scrambled egg, but bugs will never spontaneously reassemble into an egg. A tidy room will become cluttered unless you actively clean it. Socks descend mysteriously sly, but they never reappear neatly folded in pairs. This tendency gives time its direction. Entropy increases, events unfold in one sequence, not the other. The low entropy past becomes the high entropy future, and the arrow of time points toward increasing disorder. Consider a glass falling from a table. When it hits the ground, it shatters. The shards scatter, energy dissipates as sound and heat, and the system becomes more disordered. Could the shards leap back together? The laws of physics do not forbid it. But the odds are astronomically low. There are billions of ways for those shards to rem scattered, and only one way for them to form a perfect glass again. Probability stands like a gatekeeper, pointing time firmly forward, time's arrow, then scattered and it may not be built into the laws of physics at all. It may simply be a reflection of the fact that there are far more disordered states and ordered ones more. And the universe, like everything else, plays the odds. But this raises a deeper question. If entropy always increases, why was it ever low to begin with? Why did the universe start in such an exquisitely ordered state? At the endment of the Big Bang, the universe was astonishingly smooth and uniform moment, low in entropy. Over billions of years, gravity and expansion have pulled it into clumps and clusters, galaxies and stars, raising its disorder. But why the universe began so ordered is a lower mystery we have yet to solve. Some physicists believe the answer lies in the geometry of space itself mystery, that the shape of the early universe set the stage for entropy to grow. Others wonder if the question itself is flawed, like asking what's north of the North Pole. Perhaps time and entropy themselves emerge together in that first cosmic that moment. Whatever the answer, that low entropy beginning is what gives the arrow of time its push. Without it, time might have no direction at all. There are other arrows, too, each pointing the same way. One is the psychological arrow our experience of time's flow. We remember the past, but not the future. Why? Because raw memory requires physical traces, patterns in our brains, patterns, and in those traces are products of increasing entropy. Endor memory is, in essence, a record of disorder unfolding. We can't remember the future because it hasn't happened, no memory. No traces have been left. And so women's minds knows like the universe movio forward. Another is the causal arrow. Causes precede effects. You flip a switch, and the light turns on. You don't see a lamp glow. and then decide to press the button. This too is tied to entropy. Flipping the switch adds energy to the system. Light spreads outward, and the universe becomes a lit more rare disordered. The spreading of energy and in the increase of entropy ensures that cause leads and effect follows. And then there is the cosmological arrow, written into the structure of the cosmos itself. The universe is expanding. Galaxies drift apart, space stretches, and everything grows colder and ensures more diffuse over time. This expansion gives time a direction more, from a dense, hot beginning toward a vast, cool future. Some physicists speculate that if the universe ever stopped expanding and began to contract, time might seem to run backward. It's a question still open, still debated might. One armory riddle in time's endless puzzle. Entropy, memory, causality, cosmic expansion memory, all these arrows point the same way forward. They align like compasses drawn to the same pole. This alignment suggests that time's direction is not an illusion but a deep feature of a thread woven into the universe's fabric. But not everyone agrees. Some physicists believe the arrow of time isn't fundamental at all. They argue it's an emergent phenomenon, something that arises only when complex systems, observe simpler ones. In their view, time's direction is a property of observers, not of the universe itself. It is a humbling thought that the relentless arch from past to future observe not be written into the cosmos but into the way we perceive it. Imagine shuffling a deck of cards. It's possible, though highly unlikely, that you'll end up with all four suits in perfect order. Cosmos Butra much more likely is a random jumble. Now scale that up to the universe. Every much moment, entropy increases because disorder is more probable than order. The arrow of time is not a cosmic command more. It's a statistical tide. It flows not because it must, but because it almost always will, and yet that almost is enough. It's why teacups break and never unbreak. It's why we grow older and not younger. It's why we remember and not foresee. It's why the future is open and the past is closed. Time, it seems, is probability wearing a clock's face. Once you begin to notice entropy, you see it everywhere. It's in the steam rising from a cup of tea, in the way a hot room cools, in the clutter that gathers on a desk, in the way socks vanish but never reappear. The universe is one great habemus to spread, scatter, and nine to fix. This is written into every detail of daily life. It's not that order is impossible. It's just improbable without effort. You can unscramble an egg fix if you have a chicken. You can clean a SE room if messy room. If you do work, that work pushes entropy back locally, but the total still rises. Even the messy room, IFA's most exquisite ordmaster, a crystal, a snowflake, a living cell exists by expending energy, creating summary disorder elsewhere. Life itself, in a way, is an entropic rebellumorian, a local reversal that deepens the universe's overall arch forward. Time's one-way flow shapes, more than physics. It shapes us. It's the reason our stories unfold from beginning to end, not the other way around. It's why we grieve losses we cannot reverse and dream of futures we cannot see. It's why we celebrate birthdays and anniversaries, why we moriarch beginnings and endings, why nostalgia feels bittersweet and marked, and anticipation feels electric. We are creatures of the arrow. Our lives are narratives written along its each, and WSH a more memory, our memoric marker behind us, each hope a point ahead, and yet, as profound as the arrow is, it does not explain everything. It cannot tell us whether time itself exists, or if it is remarkably the shadow cast by entropy's rise. It cannot tell us whether time is a thing, a process, or a perception. It shows us direction but not nature. To chase those questions, we merely must go deeper, must be, beyond thermodynamics, beyond relativity, beyond, into a realm where certainty dissolves and reality grows strange. A realm where time itself seems to falter, vanish, or emerge anew. Intus must go into the quantum world, where the arrow blurs and the river of time becomes a whisper. Or for centuries, time had been our whisper, Oz most faithful companion, Mostlow, flowing wing like Newton's river, bending with Einstein's fabric, arching forward under entropy's command. It seemed unshakable, inevitable, the silent rhythm of the cosmos. But deep beneath the surface of things, in the flowing microscopic realm of particles and probabilities, time begins to behave differently. Here certainty dissolves. Cause and effect blur. And the ticking of the universal clock grows faint, microscopic, until in some equations, it disappears entirely. Welcome to the quantum world, where reality gets fuzzy and time itself, until a maybe more illusion than fact. In the classical world, time is a central character more, the steady backdrop against which everything unfolds. It flows independently, carrying planets in their orbits and pendulums in their swing. In relativity, time is woven into the very fabric of the cosmos, bending and stretching with space itself. But in quantum mechanics, time steps into a different role. It's not a player, but a paramet mechanics, or a kind of background note humming quietly while the drama unfolds. Consider the cornerstone of non-relativistic quantum mechanics, the Schrödinger equation. It describes how a system's wave-function mechanics, a themedy, a mathematical cloud of probabilities representing all the ways a particle could exist, thematicalvo, evolves over time. The equation tells us how these probabilities change if time passes. But it does not tell us what Tim evolves timeitis. It treats time as fixed, absolute, time iter and absolute, more like Newton's steady river than Einstein's stretching fabric. It's as if quantum mechan and absolute, Moric mechanics said, give me a clock, and I'll tell you how the wave flows. But it never explains where the clock comes from. In the quantum world, particles don't have well-defined positions or own, give momenta until they are measured and measured. Instead, they exist as probability waves measured. Smeared out possibilities of where they smeared out might be, or how might behave. Time in this realm is less like a flowing river and more like a sequence of evolving patterns. One moment, one moment, particle has a 70 chance of being here and a 30 chance of being there. Aomat one moment, and moment later, those numbers shift. The quantum world is a dance of probabilities unfolding in time. But even here, time remains external, sometime. Something we feed into the equation rather than something that emerges from it. This uneasy relationship between quantum something mechanics and time becomes even mechanics more pronounced when we try to unite it with Einstein's vision of the universe. General relativity and quantum mechanics are the two great pillars of odd mechanics or modern physics. Each works brilliantly in its own domain. Relativity for the cosmic, quantum modernic mechanics for the microscopic. But they speak very different languages microscopic. And in nowhere is that more apparent than in how they treat time. And relativity, time is dynamic more, part of the fabric of space-time, shaped by it, part of matter and energy. In quantum mechanics, time is absolute mechanics, the fixed, unchanging background parameter, merging these two into a single area, a quantum theory of gravity, has proven one of the HASO's most difficult challenges in science. And when physicists try, something astonishing happens. Time disappears. One of the central equations in the search for quantum gravity is called the Wheeler-DeWitt equation. It's a most meant to describe the quantum state of the entire universe, not just particles within space and time, but space and time themselves. And when you write this equation, something startling appears. There is no time variable in it. None. The equation is timeless. This suggests that, at the most fundamental level, the universe might not evolve from moment to moment at all. And an unchanging quantum state, an eternal now. To our human minds, steeped in clocks and calendars, this is profoundly unsettling. How can there be no time when everything we experience is drenched in it? How can the universe be timeless when our lives are easements, remeasured in seconds? The answer, perhaps, is that time is not fundamental. It measured a may be something that emerges may, not an ingredient of reality, but a story reality tells when enough complexity arises. To understand emergent time, imagine temperature. A single olek, nodal molecule, has no temperature. It obmoleculismos. It collides, it vibratesmos, but temperature is a property that only a buck makes sense when trillions of olekimikeslamalis are considered together. It emerges from the collective behavior of any particle's time. Some physicists argue a moleculus might work the same way. At the deepest level, there might or may be no ticking clock, no flowing river. But when countless quantum interactions combine, time emerges as a useful description of Shanmage, a way to describe how the universe's states relate to one another. What we call the passage of time, IAG, might simply be our brains stitching together a series of quantum states into a continuous story might. Like how a like the movie is nothing but still frames flashing by, yet we see automovie in motion. One of the strangest and motion.osmos beautiful features of quantum mechanistic mechanics is entangled mechanics, a phenomenon in which two particles become linked so that what happens to one instantly affects the other. No, it ain't matter how far apart they are. Some scientists believe time itself matter or may emerge from the growth of entanglement. As the universe evolves, particles become increasingly entangled, and this growing web of quantum relationships could give rise to the arrow of time. In this view, time's forward arch is not a property of the universe itself, but a reflection of how entanglement spreads and complexity increases. The itself Marie entangled the cosmos becomes, more your time seems to flow. Another radical idea emerges from the any world many worlds' interpretation of quantum mechanic many worlds' mechanics. In this view, every quantum event, mechanics, every very decision, every measurement, every measurement, causes the universe to branch into countless parallel realities. All possibilities exist simultaneously, but we experience just one branch time, then is not a river. It is a vast, branching tree. Every measurement, cause ascendment is a fork, every choice a new twig. Somewhere out there, there is a version of you who chose differently this or ninmomeng morning, a universe where coffee was replaced by tea, where umbrellas were remembered, morning, or remembered, and here every probability plays out. In this picture, time is not about remembered and mints passing. It is about the universe split in moments, an ever-growing web of realities, each with its own timeline. If time is so fragile in the quantum world, and if it might not even exist at the deepest level, then why does it feel so solid to us? Why do seconds arch on Emer? Thene Emery is form, and calendars fill. The answer lies in scale. We live in a world where trillions upon trillions of quantum events blur together into smooth, predictable patterns. The randomness averages out. The probabilities become near certainties. And out of that chaos, classical time emerges, memoryist, steady, audi, ijarab, steady, immeasurable, familiar. Our brains, built from those same particles, are hardwired to perceive cause and effect, sigma measurable, sequence, and change. We remember the past and imagine the future. We build stories out of events. To us, time is not optional. It's the stage on which consequence and meaning unfolds. And so, even if time is not fundamental, it becomes real and nug meaning, as real as stories, as real as temperature, as real as the beating of a heart. Some physicists and philosophers go even further, suggesting that our consciousness as might be part of why time feels so real. The brain is not a passive observer. It actively constructs the experience of reality, stitching together sensory data into a continuous narrative. It links a my-term memory to anticipation, weaving a thread from what has been to what immemori might be. Time, in this view, is not something out there at all. It's something we cremite, a story the brain tells itself to akmaki sense of change. This doesn't make chemie and time as fake. The story can still be true, but it suggests that the passage of timing, to the sense of before and after, of now slipping into then, may I exist not in the universe, but in the way we experience the universe. In the quantum equations, time may vanish, but in the rhythm of a heartbeat, the growth of a tree, may tree and the orbit of a planet. It returns history and a shape, ped, emergent, and deeply human. This duality, shaped, a may never fully resolve. Perhaps the universe is timeless at its chimera, a vast, unchanging wave function. And perhaps what we call time is what happens when consciousness moves through that wave, flipping through the pages of reality like a cosmic photo album. In this view, each now is a snapshot of the universe, vespal, complete, self-contained, complete, self-contained, internal. Our experience of time is the journey through those snapshots, the thread that stitches them together into a story. And what a story it is! Quantum physics reminds us that time is not just a number on a clock or a shadow on a sundial. It is a tapestry woven from probability and perception, a structure that's self-contained, and it may emerge only when enough particles, complexity, and enough consciousness gather meaningful, may not flow at all, may simply be a landscape of possibilities, a timeless whole. And yet, in that landscape, we still rise and sleep, remember hope, and momentagen and end. Our lives an old omen moment, and by moment, one, heartbeat by heartbeat, a fragile thread of time woven through a timeless cosmos. Time, in this view, is not the ticking of a clock. It is the unfolding of possibility. It is reality humming softly to itself, tuning its probabilities, evolving its patterns, telling its moment one quan moment, tum omen made at a time. And so we find ourselves at a curious crossroads. Time, once thought absolute, now bends and stretches. Once thought fundamental, one it may emerge from deeper truths. Once thought universal, moment it a perhaps be deeply personal, but one question remains, permasthaps the strangest man osmos profound of all. Does time exist at all? To answer that, perhaps we not step beyond clocks and calendars, beyond particles and fields, and look at time it most self-minds, not as something that flows, but as something that is. We began our journey with clocks and calendars, with the ticking of seconds and the rising of suns. We traced time as it stretched and shrank in must our einsmost, as it bent around stars and slowed aboard speeding ships. We followed its arrow through entropy's relentless rise and watched it blur and vanish in the quantum realm. And now, after all that, we arrive at Nothos, that unsettling question of all. Does time exist? It is a question that sounds philosophical, measure the kind asked in quiet cafes or at 2 a.m. in a dorm room. But it is also a question that physics itself cannot ignore. Because when we strip away the layers of how most we easermost and perceive time, something remarkable happens. Time starts to disappear. For us, that of us, time feels like a flowing river. We live only in the present, while the past slips behind us and the future has yet to arrive. This measure view, moment that only the pre-smostanomen is truly ex thetis morning, is known as presentism. It aligns with our daily lives. We wake in moment or ning moments, feel the present unfold, and remember isbaroment. Einstein says that no longer are. The past is gone, the future is imaginary. And now is all there is. Presentism is intuitive, comforting, and deeply human. But relata morning, vidi, Einstein masterpiece, Shakes Zimmerman's masterpiece, shakes its foundations. Einstein showed us that simultaneity is relative. Two events that appear to happen at the same time for one observe. Einstein's are not be simultaneous for a not moving vehemence, past g at a different speed. There is no universal now ticking across the cosmos. This leads to a radical idea called eternalism, sometimes described as the block universe view. In this picture, time does not flow at all. Male moments, past, t, present, and fut, already moving galley exist within a vast four-dimensional structure called space-time. We are not surfing down a river of time. We are part of a cosmic landscape where every event, from the birth of stars to the words you are reading now, already exists. Your childhood, your future retirement, the death of the sun, page, and all of it is there, laid out like pages in a book. You are younger on already one page, move older on another, but the book is already written. We do. All know Ife through time. We are time, extended across this four-dimensional block. This is not just philosophy. It emerges naturally from Einstein's equations. And yet, if this is page and true, What if the future is as real as the move past? Mean what does if it mean for free will, for choice, for change? Are we reading a story already written, or are we writing it as we go? One unsettling implication of the block universe is that the flow of t would time a move in g be an illusion. The sensation mean of ovin from mayon omen, off to the moving next, could, of now advancing, emotional be a feature of consciousness, not the cosmos. Think of a film reel. Every frame exists at once, but when a projector plays them in sequence, we oft see Oshamain and story. The universe, eternalists are kudu amini be like that. All events exist, but we experience them sequentially, giving rise to the illusion of flow. This do is motion and meaningless, all in time is meaningless, so mainly that fulmino a mighty not be fundamental. Meaningless, only in our mind, t be a property of may the inmate, a way for consciousness to organize change into narrative. If relativity hints that my time and mechanics see not flow, quantum gravity pushes the idea further still. We saw in part 6 that the Wheeler-DeWitt equation, one attempt to unify quantum mind, time mechanic most, and general relativity, contains no time variable. The universe at may at most fundamental lemma mechanics soul I not evolve from past to future at the moment. E simply exist as a timeless whole. This challenges everything we think we know. If time is not built into the fabric of the universe, then what is it? Where does it come from? Why does it feel so real? One possibility is that time is emergent memory, property that arises only when we zoom out from the fundamental laws to the level of complexity where change, memory, and causality become meaningful. The physicist Julian Barber takes this idea to its boldest extreme. He argues that time doesn't exist at all, not even as a background parameter. Instead, the universe is a vast collection of what he calls nows, individual timeless configurations of the entire cosmos. Each now is a snapshot of reality, complete and self-contained. Our experience of time, Barber says, comes from the structure of these nows, specifically from the way information and memory are embedded within them. It's like flipping through a cosmic photo album. The pages don't move, but our experience of moving from one picture to the next gives the illusion of flow. And in this view, time is not a river. It's not even a landscape. It's a collection of still frames, and our consciousness is what stitches them into a story. Another approach is to rethink time not as a thing, but as a measure of change. This echoes Leibniz's centuries-old argument that without events, there is no time. Imagine a universe with no option, no change, and no difference from one moment to the next. Would time mean anything there? Without change, clocks would be pointless, memory impossible, and causality meaningless. Time, in this view, is simply the language we use to describe how the universe changes, not a substance that exists on its own. From this perspective, time doesn't flow, change does. Time is our name for the order in which change unfolds. If time emerges from change, it may also emerge from relationships, from how different parts of the universe interact with one another. Some theories propose that time arises not from absolute properties but from correlations between quantum systems. Time, then, is not something that exists independently. It is the web of relationships between events. This idea blurs the line between time and space, between reality and observation. It suggests that time might not exist out there in isolation. It exists between things, in the relationships that define change. And yet, even if time is emergent, even if it is not fundamental in the way mass or charge is, it still shapes everything we do. Clocks tick. Planets orbit. Stars die. Radiation decays. Our lives unfold from birth to death. We may not know if time is real in the deepest sense, but it behaves consistently enough to build worlds on. If every clock in the universe measures the same sequence of changes, if every system evolves in the same direction, perhaps that is real enough. Time may be like a story, intangible, ungraspable, yet profoundly real in its effects. There is one more layer to this mystery. We do not merely observe time. We feel it. We remember the past, imagine the future, and live in the present. Time shapes our identities, our hopes, our grief, and our joy. Without time, there would be no stories, no growth, and no becoming. Whether time is fundamental or emergent, illusion, or reality. It is woven into the fabric of what it means to be human. It is the thread that binds memory to meaning, cause to consequence, and life to experience. And perhaps that is its greatest truth. Not that it exists out there as an object, but that it structures everything that does. So, does time exist? If by exist, we mean something fundamental and independent, something woven into the universe at the deepest level, the answer might be no. The universe may be timeless, a vast configuration of relationships and possibilities, where change, not time, is the true fundamental. If by exist, we mean something emergent but indispensable, something that structures reality once complexity, consciousness, and causality arise, the answer is surely yes. Time is as real as temperature, as stories, as meaning itself. And if by exist, we mean something personal and profound, the rhythm by which we live and love, the stage upon which our stories unfold, then time is not only real, it is essential. The timeless lesson, perhaps the truth, is that time is not one thing but many. It is subjective, bending to emotion and memory. It is biological, written into the cycles of our cells and the rhythm of our sleep. It is physical, woven into the geometry of space and the curvature of gravity. It is statistical, driven by entropy's rise. It is quantum, emerging from entanglement and probability. And it is philosophical, defined as much by how we experience change as by how the universe evolves. Time is a story we tell about change. It is the scaffolding on which we hang memory and meaning. It is the pulse of existence, steady, strange, and possibly illusory, that gives shape to everything we are. And whether it flows like a river, unfolds like a landscape, or exists only as a collection of timeless nows, it remains the most intimate mystery of all, the quiet heartbeat of the cosmos. So here we are, traveler, at the end of this long, looping journey, or perhaps just at another moment in the great tapestry of them. We began with ticking clocks and ended with timeless equations. We chased time through winds and memories, through suns and stars, through atoms and entropy. And though we still do not know exactly what time is, we know this. It shapes everything. It changes everything. And in some deep and beautiful way, it may be everything. Time is the question the universe keeps asking, and the answer we keep living.